Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining this session, Putting Artificial Intelligence and Machine Learning to Work, How Modern Incident Management is Done at Northwell Health and Waste Management. My name is Chloe Tran, and I'll be your monitor for this session. And now it's my pleasure to introduce our session moderator, Yanni Ben Shimon.
Hey, it's a nice meeting you, and thank you everyone for joining us. I'm Yoni. I'm a product manager for machine learning and data science at BigPanda. Been in the industry for 15 years for machine learning, um, and I'll chat with you in a second about how AI and machine learning take part in modern incident management.
Yanni is the ML Group Product Manager at BigPanda. In this role, he is responsible for building data science and machine learning strategy for the AI ops field while fitting technology to the challenges. Yanni has experience in running the algorithm research teams that produce actual innovative and effective solutions in the field of content understanding and information retrieval. Prior to BigPanda, he worked at Intuit, where he built a vision for ML to improve the customer experience while reducing operational costs and optimizing agent services by leveraging its unique data. He has received an MA in Interactive Communications from New York University and a PhD in Computer Science from Cornell University. Now I'd like to introduce one of our speakers, Robert Szymanski. He is an ethical hacker and a professional IT leader who has led numerous efforts to architect, design, strategize, and implement enterprise solutions that must remain secure. Rob has been involved in security and technology operations for over 25 years and has written his books from the trenches of experience. Our next speaker is Udo Strick. He is the lead enterprise systems management engineer at Waste Management, and he is responsible for the implementation and strengthening of the enterprise monitoring capabilities for Waste Management's IT infrastructure across the US, Canada, and India. He earned a Bachelor of Arts in Humanities from Seattle University and later a Master's in Electrical Engineering from FH Aachen in Germany. In Europe, he installed and maintained mainframes on the supercomputers for the Fujitsu supercomputer division, delivering high-end computing power to many of the leading companies in the oil, software, and financial sector. In the US, he turned his attention to the implementation and development of highly efficient and automated enterprise management solutions for Fortune 500 companies, and recently toward the architecture of solutions that enable and accelerate a digital IT transformation. Udo resides with his wife in Houston, Texas, and was recently recognized as an Amazon #1 best-selling author with his book, Purpose, Passion, and Profit. So now I'll turn it over to Yanni and the speakers.
Thank you, Chloe. Thanks for the introductions and taking care of us. Thank you, Rob and Udo, for joining us today. And welcome everyone to our session on AI and machine learning in modern incident management. Being a person of machine learning, our #1 questions internally is always, do we bring value? Right? Machine learning is expensive to build and requires a lot of investment. And then does it really do the work? Is it just a buzzword, or can it help our users, our customers, in this case, the whole field of AI ops, do work better? And next to it, next to bringing value, there's always the question of trust, right? Machines also, at least today, make mistakes. Can we bring value, though there's still an issue of making mistakes? And we'll try to answer these questions over this panel. Let's start with you, Rob. Can you share with us a little bit on how you use AI and machine learning for IT operations and management at Northwell Health?
Sure. So thank you for having me, and I appreciate the time to share this information and work with you all. Just to resonate what you were saying about the trust and the purpose and the actual use of AI ops in particular, I will get through it through the whole panel, but I would just like to say yes. Yes, through actually using the tools and seeing them work in action, there is definitely a benefit to machine learning, AI, and particularly AI ops. As far as the trust purpose goes, uh, we talked about this a lot in researching the tools and deploying them, configuring them, working with other people, working with peers in our industry. Um, it's a loaded question in the sense that yes, you can trust, but I've also always found that you need the completeness of the product and you need the time invested and the knowledge surrounding the tool itself. It's not it's plug and play, but there's a lot of understanding that needs to come with it before automated actions take place. So I think yes, the answer is yes. There's a resounding benefit to using it, and yes, with time and understanding and completeness of the rollout, that yes, you can also trust.
And into that even deeper as we continue. But I'd love it if you can share with us your role and how you use today within Northwell Health. How do you use AI and machine learning? What type of effect does it have on your processes?
Sure. So my current role, and this started years ago, was to investigate. I handle a lot of operational work, obviously, but was to investigate AI and AI ops in particular, looking at different packages and looking at the viability of implementing it into the environment. Obviously, when you're using very large scale environments, you are hesitant to just immediately deploy something. So there's a lot of research that went in to seeing if, again, like I said, it was viable and what we can gain from it, and so on and so forth. So, as far as what we do at Northwell, there was a lot of importance around incident management in the sense not just tickets, incident tickets, but also the handling of incidents, priority one, priority two issues. It's a healthcare system, so we need to make sure that our clinicians are always operating at 100%. We need to make sure that all systems are available at all times and operable and useful to them, all the tools that they use to perform their function. So um, we need to put and have put for a very long time a focus on incident management, incident prioritization, triage, response. And again, that's what kind of put the whole idea of how do we use AI to make that better for us, because I see that not just Northwell or any other healthcare system or any vertical or any business for that matter, a lot of things that were happening over time is you had a ton of tools, and all these tools were, I don't want to say siloed per se, but they were all different tools that didn't centralize into one thing. And then you would get all these alerts and you'd get things that you were looking at, like events for event management, and tickets were coming in on the help desk and all this stuff. And you'd have to be your own AI ops engine to try to figure out what was going on. I think that's where the specific nature of looking at a tool like this came from.
Awesome. So it's great to hear that that you as a human are your own AI ops engine, um, which means basically that we are looking to grow and improve the human capabilities to deal with those abundance of alerts that you mentioned. Um, and we'll see how we get to that. But let me move to you, Udo. Can you share with us, give us a glimpse about what does your work look like at Waste Management and how you use IT operations?
Hi, sure, we'll do. So at Waste Management, in my group, we're responsible for monitoring pretty much everything in WM's infrastructure, which includes all the servers, network devices, storage, databases, laptops, video systems, all kinds of stuff. So for us, we get a lot of alerts, right? We can somehow, I guess on average, we're somewhere around 300 to 400,000 alerts that we receive per month, and we need to manage those. And so we have a lot of systems that provide information, and one of the systems, or part of our solution set really provides application monitoring. And there we have ML running, for instance, and providing dynamic baselines, as well as doing anomaly detection and root cause analysis. On the event management side, where we use BigPanda, that's where we have the out-of-the-box ML that does the alert to incident correlation, so that multiple alerts end up in one single incident by default. And so that's really helpful for us. And then also in the custom correlation, which we do, it's really useful. And one of the examples that I like to use is that we have, one of the correlations we did was for remote sites. So any remote site, and we have a lot of them, you can imagine with 3 countries, all those remote sites, if any router, for instance, goes down, right, the core router that basically feeds all the data to all the rest of the devices, when that goes down, the other ones become invisible. So we don't want to have 10 or 20 events from all the devices telling us that they're not reachable. So we just set something up in BigPanda. And the cool thing about doing in BigPanda is really that with the feature of the preview, you get to see what you've done, right? So you get to see whether the expression that you wrote that is supposed to do the correlation is actually matching on events. So if it doesn't match on any events, then you're not going to see anything in the preview. But if it does, all those events, it would show, and it actually shows exactly which part of the strings it's actually going to match on. So with that kind of technology helping, getting the configurations right, it's just so easy to implement and so useful, and it just takes a lot of savings from your time in order to, saving time to make it happen. And also with the custom tags, we found that extremely helpful using the preview, as well as just having the capability to add, any kind of data, parameter, a variable, something into your data stream that wasn't there before, adding it based on information like enriching your data stream with additional information coming from another source, or by doing correlation with other events, and then based on that, adding a component, or changing the text in your summary of what you send when you send out and create the tickets. So all that stuff is, having that automation is just making things run so much smoother, and it reduces the amount of time that it takes us to maintain it.
So when you say that things run smoother, and you mentioned that you save time, and that you could work at a greater scale of alerts, would that summarize the advantage of AI and machine learning over the human work, scale and time, or are there other aspects in which you feel machine learning gives you value?
Yeah, I think we've got savings in man hours, savings in MTTR time, right? So we're going to be able to find the root cause much faster, because the systems now using ML are going to be able to, and AI, be able to identify much quicker, what the possibilities are as to where the problem may lie. And it doesn't mean that they're going to hit it every time, but the thing is that if you put good configurations in place, the chances are growing that you're getting much closer to the truth and identifying where the possibilities are. And so having AI and ML work really allows you to save the time of not having to do it manually, which in many cases is not even feasible anymore because of the speed of data coming in. But also, it just allows you to ensure that 24 hours a day, the system is working for you. You can go to sleep, and if you put the rules in place, things are going to work. Like for us, we do automated incident creation, and we also do automated alerting through our notification system, which means that we have rules everywhere. So from the point of where we configure some monitoring to the point of somebody receiving some information on their iPhone or on the device of their choice, all that stuff is automated, so we don't even lift a finger. And that automation is saving us a huge amount of time.
So it saves time both on manual work and saves time on the actual time to respond to the problems in the systems that you're working with.
Exactly.
And Rob, for you in the healthcare, what are the benefits that you feel are the strongest with using machine learning and AI?
Yeah, sure. So Udo did a great job. I could say many of the same things that we have gained. I did want to focus on the deduping, the alert compression, noise reduction. I think one of the biggest benefits, aside from again what Udo was just talking about, was that the volume of information that we were getting was just astronomical, and a lot of it was considered to be noise. And even if that data was investigated, your normal event management, fault management data coming from your systems from multiple sources, a lot of it was considered noise. But what we learned from when we put it into a tool like BigPanda and it had other integration sources, I think the biggest takeaway was that correlation. And when we were able to start to see the noise and that alert compression, yeah, it was high, and we were able to reduce volume. But more importantly, we weren't missing things. We were starting to see things that we had never seen before. So I think that's the biggest takeaway is obviously, just because something's spitting out an alert doesn't mean it's necessarily a problem. And just because something's, a problem doesn't necessarily mean it has spit out an alert, and vice versa. So I think when we started to look at data from all of our sources and it's starting to correlate and build on that enrichment, and again, the ability to cut tickets directly for an incident, and have a parent for everything that was coming in this high volume of alerts. I think that was probably the biggest takeaway for us, was to start to work off that data and start to solve problems that were hiding amongst the rubble, if you will.
That's amazing. I love it because it really proves, it shows how we can be data driven, how data. In my background, my academic background, I was looking at DNA. We're working on understanding the human genome, and there's a huge part that was considered junk DNA. And today we know, hey, there's a lot hiding there, a lot of very important information that we never knew to look for. And it's amazing for me to hear that our tools allow you in your world to find things you never knew that existed there, meaning that the junk actually has value in it. That's amazing. Thank you for sharing. I'm wondering now if you compare it to human work and the value that people still bring. Where are people still superior to machines? Where do we have advantage by having a human in the loop?
So that's a great question. I think that it makes me think of all the movies, Terminator. I mean, I know it's kind of cliche, but I think there's always going to be value of a mix, because there's something to be said about human intuition, and that kind of experience, life experience, feelings, emotions, things that the human being brings to the table that the machine cannot. And then there's the benefit of the machine that we can't compute that fast, and we can't retain that much data. So I think the melding of the two is of high value, and I think that's probably the best mix. I think specifically, and you said it when we first started, and I know we had a pre-talk, and I called I called myself the current AI ops system, because before these tools started to mature and we had these options, and before we had a BigPanda or those types of tools, there was always a few people in the organization that had the institutional knowledge and understood the systems well, or had that 20, 30 years of experience, and had been in the trenches, and there's just something to be said about that level of experience. So when all the tickets were coming in, or things or alerts or stuff was breaking, or people were making phone calls or escalations, and all these things were circling, there was a few people that immediately knew what was going on, that had that institutional knowledge, that had that technical knowledge, and they were able to correlate. So I think that when you have a machine now, or a system, doing that correlation, like BigPanda, doing AI ops in particular, I think that fused with people who really understand what's going on around them and know how to now work with the tool to help aid in doing webhooks and doing calls, and now working with the system more intimately. It's just endless what the possibilities can bring.
Awesome, thanks. And when it comes to errors, human errors versus machine errors, right? We sort of want to trust the machines, but we know that they bring false, let's say, false negatives, false positives. How much harder is to accept a human error versus a machine error?
Great question. So I think everything and everybody's prone to an error, and I don't think we will ever live in a perfect world. And as I said before, there was benefits, pros and cons to both. I believe this the same with people versus machine. I think that a machine, if it makes a mistake, it's easy to go into the logs and figure out what the mistake was, unless somebody erased them. And then your reliance on having somebody run the shop who's trustworthy, who will own up to that mistake and provide a resolution to it, I think it's pretty equal. I think that you probably have your odds of making a mistake, a technical mistake, are less in the AI function with all the data it consumes, but there's that intangible benefit of understanding beyond the data what somebody with institutional knowledge may bring, because before you highly tune the system, or you know that you do have false positives or you don't, it still requires that person to understand beyond that to make that judgment call. So I think, I think that would be it.
The expert is still the expert, even with a machine and the tools around them. We still need the expert that can actually use that institutional knowledge to bring true value.
Absolutely. I think that I think that anyone who is good at what they do, and passionate about it, having a tool like this just makes it so much better. Because when we deployed this, uh, our team was absolutely incredible at deploying it and passionate about it, and we all came to the conclusion at the end that it was just really, like, it was just an outstanding experience. That once we were able to see what we were seeing, we realized that we could actually be better with a tool like that. Sure.
That's amazing to hear. That's the best feedback one can ever get for providing a service. Udo, what's your take? Do you also see errors equal, machine errors and human errors?
Yeah, for me, pretty much, I find it kind of normal that, everybody makes mistakes. So I certainly think that machines will have the same effect. It's basically, I just go back to, what happens when you use script, right? You write a program or you do a script and you run it, and the first couple goes, well, you may not have, everything correct yet. And I think the same thing with AI and ML is that the rules defined, there are certain conditions set, and there's a matter of letting it run and experience and see what the results are. And even if AI and ML are absolutely perfect, perfectly configured already, the environment is going to change all the time, right? So you have new applications starting up. An application may grow in size, meaning that more web servers or database servers, and they may be bigger load. And so all of a sudden, if you don't have dynamic configurations in place that automatically adjust to a change in the environment, then you're going to have some events that were unexpected. So for us, they're pretty normal because we run it with so much automation already. Even before we started using ML, we had a lot of scripts already in place that did automation for us. So I think it's normal. I think it helps in the learning process, at least for us. You know, when something lights up and says, "Hey, we found something," and you look at it, well, no, it really wasn't an issue. Well, it basically just helps us identify where the where the perspective comes from. You know, was the rule misconfigured, or is there something that we didn't think about when we put it into place? So yeah, I'm very happy with it. Obviously, nobody wants to have just too many of these things, but at least for us, we're having a great experience and getting a huge benefit out of it.
So it seems both you and Rob have a lot of experience with AI over time, right? That you wrote scripts yourselves, you're using these tools the whole time, and you trust them now. But I'm wondering, not everyone trusts mechanic systems or machines. I must say that I don't always trust with all, especially in new circumstances. Indeed, you have a very strong experience. So when you trust it, I assume that it's due to having seen how it actually performs and what benefits you get. And you mentioned those benefits of different types. I'm wondering, do you also measure these effects, like both positive and negatives, to be able to see that it actually brings you value?
Yeah, so we're looking more and more actually as of last year. We're looking more and more into statistics and analyzing the data. So we're capturing data from BigPanda, we're capturing from ServiceNow, we're capturing from a multitude of tools that we use. And the data that we're pulling doesn't mean that the data set itself, we know already that there is some information in it that's going to provide some information. But you really have to look at data, grab the data, and then after seeing data, you're going to identify things that are unexpected, possibly, right? But that's kind of the reason why you're doing it, right? You need to grab it, slice and dice it, get your data from it. How many, things happen at a certain time period? Is there any correlation between applications having more events on Mondays versus on Wednesdays? There's a lot of data that can be pulled, and I think with the capabilities nowadays, being able to pull so much data and being able to review it and analyze it in an automated fashion, you really get a good perspective and insights into what is going on. And so I think for us, it's quite useful. We're creating more and more views into the data through using Power BI as well as some other means. And the analysis is showing us that it helps us in operations to tune operations better. For instance, just my simple example is that we analyze data regarding notifications. For instance, we send out a lot of notifications for alerts that are require some action. And when these alerts are sent out, well, we have multiple ways of communicating to people, meaning that in our systems we allow that people can select their phone, their email, their home phone, their mom's phone, whatever they want, right? So all these notifications go out. Well, we've analyzed and found out that we have a lot of notifications going out over voice, people getting called, but people are not picking up. And it's not that they did something wrong. It's just that they had the option to configure it, but it's not being used as much, or at least it's not their primary way of communicating. So we just need to tune that accordingly so that maybe the voice call comes at the very end, or we don't configure voice for them for those that are not really are finding that it's useful for them. And you can only see that through the data. and our statistics have shown that. So I think it's a great way to go and make things more useful.
That's great to hear. Again, here you use both the data to learn and improve your processes, but also to measure your success with the processes, identifying what's working well, what's not working, and allowing you to improve your processes. So here, machine learning or your data science and data analysis allows you both to bring value and to measure your value. A great example. Thank you. Rob, do you want to give your take about how do you see and how do you measure the value that comes from AI?
Sure. So, just to offer a different perspective, obviously, we all consider and are concerned about gathering metrics, KPIs, critical success factors, how all that ties into MTTX, and all of that. That's all critical. It's critical to ensuring that we're operating at a certain level. We're reporting to executive management and leadership, our ability to perform, all of that. But just to offer a different perspective, another benefit of the data is this. A lot of times when you're doing incident management, which is obviously critical to keeping systems up, and no matter, again, what channel, vertical, whatever organization or function that you work in, keeping systems up and running is critical to today's business. It's imperative. Everything runs off of technology, and whenever technology has an issue, in some cases it could be life-threatening. If it's health and aviation and nuclear and all these other military, it could lose you money, financials. It could be an impact to your credibility as an organization. There's many sources of damage. What I like to look at is root cause. So when you think of ITIL and that whole structure, and you're dealing with service operations, and you're dealing with change management, incident management, problem management, I like to understand specifically root cause. I like to understand why something broke. I like to understand what that is, mostly for preventative actions, corrective actions. We want to go in and we want to solve problems. We want to stop these issues. And it's also part of that whole noise reduction. If you can get the systems to stop spitting out events and alerts, that's great. That might come from tuning, but there's the actual issues that do bubble up and are things that do break and impact performance and impact systems and their usability. So one of the things that I like to gather out of these tools, specifically BigPanda, and what we were able to gather from the dashboards, the analytics, the bubble up of issues, the blast radius maps, all that kind of stuff, we're able to kind of see what an issue is and attack that issue and solve it, and really put it to rest through root cause analysis.
Amazing. Yeah, it's easy to forget that sometimes these operations are in critical parts of our life, or where mistakes cost more. And being able to analyze those areas where we had failures, it would, I know, especially in fields like yours, puts us on the play where we're slightly frightening to make an error, but it's great to have the tools and the capabilities to allow us to dig deeper into them and to understand our environment better. And all the signals that we have better. Let me try to take us to another world and imagine our future, right? So machine learning is part of our future, and AI ops is relatively new as a field, at least adding significant AI value to it. I'm wondering where we envision machine learning in AI ops, operations and management in general in the future, let's say 5 years from now. Can you take us to where you imagine it going?
Yeah, sure. So 5 years from now, we're talking dog years. So it's actually a lot if you look at the past 5 years and where we came from. it can go anywhere, but I think the goal of getting there is to make sure that as organizations we go back to fundamentals to make sure and putting in a tool like this is a cherry on top of the cake and make sure that we have a well-baked cake. And what I mean by that is, for example, having a good service management tool like ServiceNow, having everything in there, your CIs, your CMDB is mature, you have good processes, you have all your tools are connected, they're fully utilized, they're populated correctly, using the correct naming conventions, all the stuff that are fundamental building blocks. That's what's going to make your AI ops system stronger. And I think as more attention goes to AI ops and the amazing benefits that it brings, I'm hoping that over the next 5 years, organizations like mine and others take that focus on making a better foundation and making things excellent in the case that when you add that cherry, you get the biggest benefit out of it. Now, that's a generic question on where I think we should be going in the next 5 years. And if we have that completeness, I think that we'll gather so much more out of AI ops. And as it develops and the technology and ML develops underneath it, I think that we can see that more large scale sums of data, which we're definitely going to see is going to give us the ability to prevent more outages and issues because these systems will have had time to ingest that data, mature. You have more of the ability to develop it, and hopefully the automation piece, which is, I believe, the most trusted piece, the piece that we have to get to be more trusted, as far as it doing actions for us through webhooks and what else. For example, vMotioning the server or whatever the case is. I think once we have the trust, we have the completeness of the the CMDB and all the underlying systems, and we're very knowledgeable in the tool and can operate it well. I think that the future is going to be able to bring us that ability to spend more time doing other things and not worrying about so much the response to incidents and combing through systems and data and events and tickets and trying to figure out what broke and how it broke and why it broke. And if that automation is set up well, we can just sleep soundly knowing that it took the correct action.
I love your vision. Both as a data scientist, as you say, hey, we should first make sure that we have enough data and clean data, right? Organizing all your processes and making sure that we get the right data out of it. And then second part is having all our tools connected to each other. Again, that's something that will help all our processes. And as a data scientist, also provide us cleaner and better data availability. And indeed, the hope is that we can focus on other things, that the things that are trivial will just automate themselves, right? That we have the ability to self-solve, to auto-resolve everything. Udo, what's your perspective?
Well, I think that, especially 5 years from now, well, that's a long time in IT, right? So I think it's going to change quite a bit. A lot more automation, a lot more events. IoT, I think, is going to be becoming huge. The amount of data flow that's going to be coming from sensors that are going to give us live data, it's going to be incredible. It's going to tell us all kinds of things that are happening in real time. We have to, look at how that data gets ingested, how it gets processed. Systems nowadays are, doing better and better as far as communicating with one another using APIs. We're taking advantage of that, for instance, and we have more and more of this automated API calls happening as part of our automation, and as well as part of our reporting. And I think it's, more things are going to be automated. I do think that our jobs are going to change to some degree because right now there's still quite a bit of manual effort, and as far as configuring things, getting them set up. I don't believe that in the future 5 years from now, we're going to be worrying about how to get an agent installed for specific monitoring software. I think that all those kinks are already going to be worked out. A system will tell us whether an agent currently exists, and if the rule is that in your company for under these conditions, an agent should be installed, and then AI or ML will be working to check, make sure there's enough space, that the server's doing good, performance is good, do the install, automatically, take care of looking at the logs, identifying if any issues are coming up, checking performance again, all those things, and give us an automated report that then says that everything's fine. And we'll be looking at the report, right, as opposed to doing all the stuff at the front end. So I think it's going to change significantly. I do think as far as getting things implemented, it's going to be significantly easier with automation. I do think we have to, keep looking at it and keep understanding, and especially as we are in the process of converting from some manual things to automation. We really need to hit on what Rob and you have been talking about, standards and how you configure things. They need to fall in place, right? You don't want to be trying to automate something that is kind of confusing for yourself at the moment because it's so complex, and just jumping right into automation. I think the better path is to set your standards, then reduce the complexity of the environment that you're in, define your processes, and then create the process and simplify it before you even get to the automation. Because if you go through those steps, then the automation is going to be really easy, because by that time you've already worked out and figured out that out of the 20 ops in your current manual process, you really only needed 5 that were critical, and that is much easier to implement than 20.
I love it how you both focused on first improving the whole operations and process, and only then coming with automation to solve the rest. Not saying, hey, we'll drop everything there and the machines will take care. But no, we have responsibility over our systems, and then we'll make it even more optimized, even faster, even greater with machines coming in. So I'm really hope that 5 years from now, when we meet, this will already be the true state when everything's automated, proactive, and that we could spend as humans more time and more focus on more difficult, more interesting topics. But I'm glad that we have the challenges till then, improving our ecosystem and improving our processes to make our companies work smoother and manage well. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Udo. Thank you, Chloe. This was amazing. I had a lot of fun. And this was great. Thank you.